If you want ordinary, look elsewhere. Welcome to TC Channel, where other channels fall short, unique mysteries solved step by step. This woman was trapped in a coffin for 7 years. She was abused the whole time, treated like a slave. She was brainwashed, doing whatever they told her, even working to support them. It all started with a simple hitchhiking ride. Like opening Pandora's box, it dragged her into a nightmare. On May 19th, 1977, Thursday, 20-year-old Colin decided to surprise a friend in California. Everyone warned her it was unsafe, but she wasn't backing down. Her car broke down, and she couldn't afford a bus ticket, so she decided to hitchhike. At 7 a.m., Colin hit the road on I-5 with a trip that would take 28 hours. First, she got a ride from a college student going 36 kilometers. Then, she hopped onto a truck hauling juice boxes, driven by 2 guys. One of them tried to hide her during a police check and even got handsy, but Colin wasn't scared and kept going. She'd already gone 500 kilometers and was almost there. In Red Bluff, where I-5 and Highway 36 meet, Colin got out to wait for the next ride. She turned down 2 cars before getting into a blue Dodge with Cameron, Hook, Janice and their kids. They looked like a nice, happy family, but little did she know, she'd just stepped into a nightmare. They drove about 4 kilometers and stopped at a service station. When Colin got back to the car, she noticed a strange wooden box in the back seat. Even though it was a red flag, she didn't think much of it and stayed in the car. About 20 minutes later, they reached a park near a forest. Hook asked if she wanted to stop and check out some caves, and Colin said yes. He quickly turned onto a dirt road, heading to a creek. Hook and his family got out, and Colin stayed in the car, waiting. What she didn't know was, this was where her nightmare was about to begin. Colin looked out the window and saw a woman with a child in the west. But he couldn't see the man. Suddenly the seat in front of him lunged forward and the man jumped into the back seat. He was holding a large knife and pressed it against Colin's throat. "Put your hands on your head," the man ordered. Colin froze, shocked and unable to move. "Put your hands on your head," the man shouted again, forcing the knife harder into Colin's throat. Colin immediately obeyed. The man quickly took out a pair of handcuffs and cuffed Colin's hands behind his back. Then he placed the knife against Colin's throat again. "You'll do as I say," the man ordered. Colin, paralyzed with fear, couldn't speak, only nodded. The man placed something on his head, covering his eyes with a cloth, and his mouth with a wide leather belt. Colin's chin was forced into place, and he couldn't scream out. Finally, the man tied Colin's ankles with a rope. He was fast and efficient. Clearly this wasn't the first time he had done this. Now the strange box in the back seat was clearly for Colin. It weighed 18 pounds and had a round hole to fit around his neck. Once the pins were inserted, the box was securely closed and no sound or air could get through. When the woman returned to the car, she said nothing, accepting everything without question. Colin realized the woman had to have known about the plan to kidnap him. The car jolted as it drove over rough ground and then turned onto the main road. They were heading back to Red Bluff. The car suddenly made a sharp turn and stopped. The engine turned off. The woman and child got out of the car, and the man opened the box and ordered Colin, "You'll do as I say." Colin quickly responded, "Yes." At that moment, the rope on his ankles was undone, and the man ordered Colin to get out of the car. He grabbed Colin's shoulder and pushed him forward. Colin was taken to Hook's basement. There, he was stripped of his clothes and hung from the ceiling. The couple then engaged in intimate acts right in front of him. Hook also whipped Colin, beginning months of torture. Every day, Colin was tied up in the basement, his head still trapped in that hateful box. Around 8 p.m. every night, Hook would come to the basement to torture him. The methods varied, but often he would hang Colin's wrists from the ceiling while he assaulted him and whipped him. You might wonder, how did this couple end up together? Let's rewind a bit and look at Hook's past. He was born in California in 1953 to a modest family with average financial conditions. His parents moved frequently to make ends meet, which brought a lot of instability to his childhood. In school, Hook often felt left out. This made him very lonely. He started to have some negative thoughts. He just wanted to be noticed. He wanted to feel in control. In the end, he made some bad choices. In 1973, he met Janice, who was 15. Janice came from a complicated family. She had been sick as a child, and her dad was distant. She was shy and relied on others. After dating for a few months, Hook started asking her to do things she wasn't comfortable with. Janice was afraid of losing him, so she agreed. Over time, it happened more often. They did things she didn't like. She went along with it because he would be nice to her afterward. Once, Hook asked for something even more. Janice didn't tell anyone. She didn't want to lose him. Even though it made her uncomfortable at times, their relationship seemed fine most of the time. Hook took her to new places, and they did things she'd never done before. She became more dependent on him and started feeling stuck. A little over a year later, Janice told Hook she was pregnant and suggested they get married. They got married in 1975, but Hook wasn't interested in a normal marriage. He just wanted to meet his own needs. After they married, Janice stayed quiet, but her feelings for him started fading. Hook said their life needed something new. Janice didn't argue. Their relationship drifted further apart. Hook tried to bring new people into their life, but gave up because of the cost. On May 19, 1977, Hook got home from work. Like usual, around 4 p.m., he picked up his wife and kids for a drive. They drove for about 30 minutes. That's when he spotted Colin standing on the side of the road. Hook quickly pulled over and offered him a ride, but instead he took Colin straight to the basement. For the first month down there, Colin was treated horribly every day. Janice would talk to her sometimes, but Colin never really got to see her face. After 5 months, Hook decided to give her a bath, but it wasn't out of kindness. He set up a camera in the bathroom. Hook controlled her every move, blindfolded her, taped her mouth shut, and tied her legs to a broomstick. Then he shoved her face into the water. Colin couldn't move. The broomstick was wedged against the side of the tub, so she couldn't even lift her knees. Hook would push her head under the water until she couldn't breathe, then yank her up by the hair and dunk her back down again. This went on over and over. He even took pictures. Colin was submerged in water more than 20 times before they let her sit up and catch her breath. By then, just breathing hurt. Hook had Janice try to fix Colin's hair. It was a mess, tangled and stuck together with tape. Normal conditioner didn't work. Janice tried using vegetable oil, but it still wouldn't come out. In the end, she had to cut off about 12 centimeters of hair. After being trapped for over 6 months, Colin was finally let out of that awful box. Hook forced her to sign a contract saying she was his slave. It was based on a role-play idea he saw in a magazine. He rented a typewriter, printed it out, and made Colin sign it. The contract said Colin's name was Kay. She had to call Hook Master. She couldn't talk. Unless he asked her something, Colin had no choice. She signed it. Once she did, Hook treated her like his property. He abused her every day, but out of respect for his wife, he used some strange methods. In 1978, Hook's family moved into an RV. There was no basement in there, so Colin was kept under the bed. It was like a coffin. She could only come out a few hours each day to eat and use the bathroom. But the abuse didn't stop. She was locked away for 7 years. During that time, Janice and Hook had a second child. Why didn't Colin escape? Because Hook scared her. He said a powerful group was watching her family. He threatened to hurt them. If she tried to escape or fight back, she obeyed to protect her family. Hook controlled her completely. As time went on, Colin got some freedom. She could walk around the house and garden. Even though there were chances to run, she didn't dare. She was too scared for her family. Her cooperation with Hook allowed her to visit her family. In 1981, she went with Hook to see her parents. Hook told them he was her boyfriend. They lied, saying she left on her own. This should have been her chance to get away, but she was so brainwashed, she believed everything Hook said. When she returned, all her freedom was taken away. Not because she didn't cooperate, but because Hook thought she had too much freedom. She was locked under the bed again for almost 3 more years, until 1983. When Hook's family needed more money, Colin was allowed out. She got a job at a motel to make money for Hook. 7 years of being locked up made. Janice and Colin trust each other. In some way, they understood each other, but then Hook came up with a wicked plan. He wanted Janice and Colin to take turns sleeping with him and do whatever he wanted. He even gave it a name, the alternate night system. Janice was devastated. She realized if they didn't get away from Hook, their lives would never change. To end it all, Janice begged Hook to take her life. She thought he was just scaring her, but he went through with it. Thankfully, she survived. That experience woke Janice up completely. She realized the only way to truly be free was to escape Hook. August 9th, 1984, Janice showed up at the motel where Colin worked. She finally got the courage to tell the truth. She told Colin that Hook had been lying to her. There was no big organization. He was just using her to keep her as his servant. Colin was in shock. She started crying. They went to the church together. At first, the pastor was confused because they were so emotional. Once he understood what they'd been through, he told them to pack up and leave, go to their parents' place. But time was running out. Hook was about to finish work. The pastor told them to act normal, pick Hook up like they usually did, then leave once he was at work. Colin was nervous. She was scared Janice might change her mind, but she had to trust her. They acted like everything was fine. Had dinner with Hook the next morning. Once Hook left, Janice and Colin quickly packed their stuff. By noon, they escaped with the kids and headed to Janice's parents' place. Janice was very dependent on people. She wanted Colin to stay and help make a normal life for the kids. But Colin knew. Now she was free. She had to get away. She called her dad, told him she was coming home, and asked for $100 to buy a bus ticket. Once she had the ticket, Colin called Hook and said, "I'm leaving, I know you lied to me." She didn't remember what Hook said, but she remembered him crying for Janice. Things weren't that simple. She didn't tell her family much, so they thought it was just a fight and kept telling her to go back. Janice ended up going back, but once she got there, she knew she didn't want to stay. Hook seemed sorry. He promised to change, even went to church with her, said he'd get help if needed. But none of that made Janice happy. After Colin had been gone for 3 months, Janice finally called the cops on Hook. She'd wanted to leave him for a long time. Ever since, he said he wanted more slaves, but the kids kept her from leaving. Janice also shared that in January 1976, her husband had kidnapped another girl, Mary Elizabeth, and ended her life, but they never found her body, so no charges were pressed. Hook got 104 years in prison for kidnapping Colin in 1985, and he's still there today. That's it for this case. Like, comment, and subscribe. See you next time.